Today on this edition of Life After Sight Loss TV, we're going to talk about what it's like when you lose your one thing. What's up, VIPs? Derek here, back with another edition of Life After Sight Loss TV, where it's all about helping you discover life after sight loss. On this channel, we do product reviews, life advice, encouragement, how-tos, and so much more. So if you're new here and that all sounds good to you, consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss another single video. Recently, I was binge watching some YouTube, like we all sort of do, and I watched a video by a pretty popular YouTuber named Casey Neistat. Now, Casey is very well known on the platform. He's done a lot of videos, very influential for YouTube and that sort of thing. And he did a video talking about the possibility of losing one of the most important things in his life, and that is his activity of running. Apparently he's done marathons and he runs miles a day and things like that. But he had an injury that he was getting tested on his knee, and he may not be able to run again. Now, spoiler alert, he did do another video and the doctor said it didn't show that he was going to have to never run again. But in the first video, he was very challenged by this idea because he said, quote, it was his one thing. His one thing that gave him a little bit of sanity in this chaotic life, making videos and his family and all this sort of thing. It was his one thing. He could go out, he could run, it would give him center and focus or whatever, that was his one thing. And it really made me think, because whenever you lose your sight, many times you no longer have access to your one thing. Whether it's physical activity or technology or hobbies or whatever, you can lose the one thing. Now, you may not lose it forever, but at least right at first you feel like, I can't ever do this again. And so I wanted to talk for just a minute about the possibility of losing your one thing, how that affects you, and what to do as you continue to move forward. First of all, I want you to know something. When you lose your sight isn't the only thing you lose. You lose access to other things, like, for example, your one thing. Now, whether your one thing is physical or whatever, you have this idea that you can no longer do it. And there may be a very real chance you can't. Let's say you love to go out on drives and Sunday afternoon and go for a 10-hour drive or whatever. You're not going to be able to do that anymore. And if you have something that like bike riding, you're not going to be able to do that the same way you did that. So there might be an opportunity to grieve the loss of something. And that you'll have to do in your own time and in your own way. Saying goodbye to something or someone is always difficult, and everybody does it a little bit differently. But it's important to keep in mind that you may have to say goodbye to something, and you'll need to take the time and effort to do that in your own life and in your own way. Now, this idea of having one thing, I think it's really important, because I would say that I don't know Casey Neistat necessarily. I've never met him or shaken his hand or anything like that. But when he says it's his one thing and you take that out of his life, then all of a sudden it becomes this, mass of what am I going to do? Because when we have those things, whether it's him or anyone else, it becomes very much of this is what I do. And so much so that it becomes, this is who I am. This is the sport I play. This is the job I have. This is the hobby I like to be a part of. This is who I am. And I want you to know that that one thing does not define you. It just doesn't. It's not your defining definition. Defining definition might be a little bit of an overkill, but it's not the thing that defines you. And neither is sight loss. No one ever defines themselves as a sighted person. You never introduced yourself, hi, I'm Joe and I can see. That never happened. But now, a lot of times we're like, I'm Joe and I'm blind. It's terrible. That is not the case. You are not defined by your sight loss, and you're not defined by the things that you like to do either. So if you lose the ability to do those things, it doesn't mean you as a person doesn't exist anymore. Yes, something you love to do and be a part of is maybe gone and missing. Maybe just for a while, maybe forever. But it's not the thing that defines you, and you need to be reminded of that. If you can't be sure of that today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Maybe you're watching this video and you're like, yeah, but you don't know how my life was. You don't understand, and it was the thing, and you're very angry. I get it. Look, I understand. I understand it. When I lost my sight, I didn't know how I was going to move forward. I did theater. And, I was on stage and in the dark and all these, I was like, how am I going to do this? I can't see. But after a while, I slowly worked it out, and I performed more years visually impaired than I have as a sighted person. And so it took some challenges to overcome. It took some, things to do and that sort of thing, but I was able to do it. I can't say that everybody's going to be able to do that, but I was. But theater's not what defined me as a person. If I'd never been able to do theater again, my life as who I am, me, Derek, that isn't over. So be assured that that one thing isn't what defined you. And if Casey Neistat is watching this right now, which I highly doubt that he is, but if he is watching this, I would tell him the same thing. Running doesn't define you. Filmmaking does. If Casey Neistat never made another video on YouTube, him as Casey Neistat, that would not be over, because it's not that him making YouTube videos defines him. It's not that you doing whatever you do defines you. Your definition is not that. It is who you are at your core. And that is a whole big broader topic that we'll get into maybe in another video. And finally, remember that just because you can't do it the same way doesn't mean you can't do it. Maybe it's running, or biking, swimming. Maybe it's an activity like that. Maybe it's knitting, sewing. Maybe it's, doing things around the house. Whatever it is that's your thing, your one thing, doesn't mean you're never going to be able to do it again. You may have to adapt to it a little differently. You may have to approach it a little differently, just like when I talked about theater, but it doesn't mean that it's over for you. And even if it is over, remember, there's not just one thing that you have. There are many things, many opportunities we have to tap into the world around us. And just look at it like that, an opportunity. Very scary, very hard, very difficult sometimes, yes, but still an opportunity nonetheless. And so in this video, what I hope you get out of this today is this. Number one, you do have to grieve the loss of things in your life. Number two, the one thing that you have doesn't define who you are, and that's really important to know. And number three, remember that just because you can't do that the same way doesn't mean you can't do it. And just because you can't do it at all doesn't mean you can't do something else. And that become your quote, one thing. My question for you today is this. What's your one thing? Did you lose access to something else when you lost your sight? Did you adapt to something to make it your one thing? What did you do and how did you get your one thing? I'd love to hear about it, and I know others would as well. So let me know in the comments below. Hey, if you liked today's video, if you found it helpful, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, share it with somebody you know, and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss another single video. Thanks again for watching this edition of Life After Sight Loss TV, and until next time, remember that sight loss isn't the end, it's just the beginning. My name's Derek Daniel from LifeAfterSightLoss.com, and I'll see you in the next one.